And okay, so I'll introduce you and then we can begin. Okay, sir?
Probably we can take a few minutes. Some more can join. 2 or
Yeah,
3 we can
okay.
start.
Let's wait for 2 minutes. Yeah, we can start at 75:05. Yeah.
I think Preet, we can start if it is
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, we can begin. All right, so I'll introduce you. Um, I've also attached your bio in the chat box so people can, read it out. I'll be speaking it. Okay, so Dhananjay Singh is a civil servant belonging to the Indian Revenue Service in the Union Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Before joining the civil services, he served as a commissioned officer with the Indian Army after getting trained at the Indian Military Academy in Dehradun. His military stint has taught him valuable lessons in team building, group dynamics, and leadership. His educational qualifications include a BE Tech with first class, an MBA with gold medal, and a PG diploma in commercial law from the National Law University in Bangalore. During his MBA internship, he got an insight into the planning process of the country, which was the then Planning Commission of India, and right now it's what we know as Niti Aayog. His articles have been published in reputed Indian journals like Economic and Political Weekly and National Financial Press that includes Financial Express, Business Standards, Business Today, Tax India Online, etc. His research papers have been published in proceedings of reputed international conference and indexed in Scopus. He is passionate about co-creating an entrepreneurial culture and ecosystem. He possesses cross-functional skill sets, a holistic attitude, perspective based on accumulated experience across multiple domains. He has an aptitude in the interdisciplinary field of public finance, sociology, law, and emerging technologies like blockchain, responsible and socially useful artificial intelligence, cyber forensics, etc. A team player with core competence of efficient and effective execution of tasks while institutionalizing sustainability, evidence-based research, and design thinking in furthering public policy goals. So Dhananjay Singh is very well accomplished speaker. Today we have with us a very known personality, an assistant commissioner, serving in GST Bhavan at Vadodara. We are very grateful for you, sir, for taking out time for us, and we are looking forward to this amazing interaction that we are going to have today with you. This stage is all yours. This virtual stage is all yours, sir. We can begin.
Thank you very much, Preet, for the kind words. And I'm thankful to all the audience who has joined today for a lively interaction. And I will welcome all the participants and the students to come forth with their ideas whenever they want to in the chat box. And I'll be going through some reflections, some thoughts, which will be basically will be arising out of my experience and domain knowledge of various sectors and leadership experiences that I've had. So it will be a summary of those knowledges and experiences. So I'll be sharing the presentation right now. So while the presentation is getting on, so I would like to say that today we have actually assembled for a discussion on what opportunities are there in the present scenario. And for understanding the landscape of opportunities, we need to understand what are the various variables that are operating. The variables can relate to the economic side, the business side, other aspects of entrepreneurship like land, labor, capital, organization, which we traditionally know in economics, and your leadership skills and your skill sets on the human relations side. So all those aspects, when it comes together, then we have a successful venture.
Right, sir.
So I'm sharing the presentation right away. Sharing the screen.
I would again like to give a heads up that anyone who wants to, ask any doubt, any query, they can, simply type it in the chat box. Meanwhile, the session is going on, and we will take it further and address your queries.
Okay, I hope my screen is visible to all the participants.
Yes, sir, it is.
So the views expressed in the presentation would strictly be personal views. And now let us start with a background to this, that there was a movie released in around a decade back by the name of Contagion, which actually reflects the same situations that we see today. So basically, this I'm trying to say because we need to understand that there are various facets which may have underpinnings leading to fear which may not be substantiated. So we need to guard against fear which is not justified. So to support the point, I'll also bring to your notice that there is a concept of behavioral economics which says that uh, we tend to overweigh losses that we have and in comparison to the profits. So when there is you can see the slope, that the slope is very steep in case of loss function. So why is it so? Because we tend to give more weightage to per unit of loss. So translating into common understanding, that we tend to magnify our losses in comparison to our gainful experiences. So that is very much relevant when we appreciate the fallout of the pandemic also. So we have to take it in the right measure. We have to understand what are the dynamics which are arising out of it and what all things, opportunities and challenges associated with it. So just to understand the pandemic from the economic lens,
Sir, excuse me.
yeah.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. I think a few viewers are not, hearing your voice properly. Maybe it's low. So if you can adjust, please.
It's maximum. One second. Once again,
Okay.
it's maximum from this side. Are you able to hear?
Okay. Okay. Now it's audible.
Okay. So yeah. So let us understand COVID-19 from an economic perspective. Economic perspective, broadly, it will entail two factors. First, the COVID had an impact on income distribution. And secondly, it had an impact on the supply of goods and services in the economy. Income distribution shock basically translates into moving of money in the economy. It also affects the resilience. Resilience is the property of firms and households to rebound back after suffering any crisis. So the income distribution aspect also affects those aspects. Since it is a distribution function, so it will be affecting the various economic segments, socio-economic segments, disproportionately. The poorer segments naturally will be affected more by this shock, income distribution shock. Secondly, the other economic aspect arising out of COVID-19 is related to supply.
the supply shock. The shock translates into shrinking of the pie of goods and services in the economy. Basically, the shrinking of the GDP. When there is a lockdown, there is a cessation of production activities, it leads to the shrinking of the pie of goods and services. These two aspects we have to remember to understand the fallout of the pandemic from an economic perspective. The graph which is put in the on the slide also shows that there is a secular increase in the economic activity as we are having a calibrated uh, uh, getting out of the lockdown. So this phased getting out of the lockdown is also uh, uh, co-terminus with the starting of industries. As you can see, many industries have started functioning. Many industries like pharma sector, they were already in the essential list since the start of the lockdown. They were functioning. So with this, the one of the indicators of the functioning of the economy can be the tax collections, which are seeing a certain amount of increase. So the sentiments which have to be there both in the how economic agents, which are households, which are firms, has to be positive or buoyant to take it further forward. So these are some of the initiatives which have been taken by the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. This is related to the basically this specialized board which is dealing with the import and export functions of international trade. So even during the lockdown, there was a facility of 24 cross 7 clearance at seaports and all the associated terminals which were concerned with the export and import. So now, uh, to go at the firm level or at the micro level or at the household level, first we need to understand the broader picture. The broader picture basically is given by the strategy document. One of the strategy document, strategy document of India is given by the Niti Aayog. The strategy document, namely Strategy for India, New India at 75. These four columns are reflecting the major aspects of the policy document. Why I'm bringing to the notice is that these major drivers, we would have studied in strategic management that there is an external environment and there is an internal environment. All the forces we have to understand which are the forces operating. So for that, let us understand the strategy document. What does it convey? So this is also an indication, a strong indication of what we can visualize the support by the state or the public policy. So the drivers basically are those which will be driving, which are expected to be driving the Indian economy, the growth in employment. And as we can understand, agriculture is a very important domain of activity and employs a maximum of people, and also has a lot of aspects related to the climbing of the value chain in agriculture through food processing and other aspects, which would result in doubling of farmer incomes and increasing the farmer's share of the consumer rupee. So another important driver is manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector, as you know, is very important sector. Basically, manufacturing sector. Why is it important? Because it results in production of goods and services. It also results in employment generation at a very relatively larger scale, and also employs people from semi-skilled and then the lower part of the skills value chain. And most of the MSMEs, as we know, 63 million MSMEs are there. Micro, small, and medium enterprises are there in India, which actually do a lot of exports. And most of the MSMEs are also involved in manufacturing, which you could see in Gujarat primarily in a major way. Science, technology, and innovation. As you know, technology is a major driver and an enabler, and fintech and tourism. So, and the second important aspect is infrastructure. Infrastructure is extremely important, as we know. Infrastructure basically are the nerves, nerves of, as we have nerves in the human body, infrastructure are those nerves. Without the nerves, the human body cannot function. So the infrastructure requirement, if you see the recent policy announcements by the Honorable FM, Finance Minister of India, so you could sense the intention, the policy intent is very clear, leading to upgradation of infrastructure, of power, energy, transport, urban management, environment and water resources. All these are very important. At the same time, we have to remember that India is a diverse country and comprising people from various and diverse economic backgrounds. So the aspect of inclusion, if you are talking about, for example, we are able to interact through a video conferencing platform, but it's also a reality that we need to understand there are some regions and some people who may not be on the right side of the digital divide. So those aspects of inclusion in the aspect of education, health, nutrition is a very major aspect where entrepreneurs can also intervene. Social enterprises can come up in a very major way to bridge the gap. Gender and traditionally marginalized sections. We have districts in Gujarat, for example, which are having a significant number of tribal populations, and there are artisans who have a lot of goods which are waiting to be marketed to the urban markets. I will be dealing with exact examples of real life examples where this has been done. Finally, the aspect of governance. Governance is very important. Governance primarily means the manner of governing. It can be applicable to any sector, any domain. Let it be government, let it be state, or it can be private sector, it can be non-profits, can be city government, or anything. So the aspect of governance, whenever an entrepreneur is there, the aspect of governance of his own firm or economic activity is very important. How it results in a greater value addition and a value capture aspect. So the mega trends, let us capture in a very brief sense so that we understand what are the major mega trends in the economy. So the aspect of change in geopolitics, we know that is also having a certain amount of impact on the in addition to the fallout of the COVID pandemic, on the sourcing strategy. Sourcing strategy is primarily is related to the supply chain management. So what has happened is that I'll give you an example. When the COVID pandemic panned out in a major way in other countries other than China in late February or early March, we could realize that there was an acute shortage of face masks and such other equipment. Lo and behold, we could realize that the single sourcing strategy resulted in that. How? Because Wuhan was the major distributing center, major manufacturing and distributing center of face masks and such other products. So as the lockdown was severe in that area, and it was supposedly the virus which emanated from there. So as the supply chain got disrupted there, the supply of such essential things also got disrupted. Such incidents have led to the thinking of diversification. But diversification, we need to remember the cost aspect. In management, there are two major aspects which is very important. First is the cost, and second is the differentiation of your product or services. So the cost aspect is extremely important. So while maintaining the cost aspect, the companies are thinking about having a dual strategy, so a dual sourcing strategy, from a single sourcing strategy to dual sourcing strategy. And we could also see in the recent news and other information that are coming in is that many of the manufacturers are shifting bases to India. So that opportunity has to be caught by the entrepreneurs, because when any manufacturing setup, major OEM, original equipment manufacturer, sets up business or manufacturing in India, there are a lot of ancillary industries or clusters which come up. So we could see this in many places, even in Gujarat. So that actually leads to a greater amount of value addition and value generation, and a lot of employment also gets generated. So in addition to that, especially from the point of view of entrepreneurs or business ventures, and for the aspect of business proliferation, because encouraging business is very important for the growth of the economy. As we know, as you all know, that we are standing at around $3 trillion size of economy of the GDP, or the gross value added, as of now. At least we could reach 5 trillion, or we should aim for 10 trillion dollar economy. Then we will be having the right economic heft vis-a-vis the $13 trillion economy of China. So Make in India, again, it relates to the aspect of manufacturing, and manufacturing, as you know, is extremely important aspect. In addition to the services emphasis, the manufacturing aspect is also very important. And manufacturing doesn't mean only high-end manufacturing of nanotechnology or industry 4.0 standards of manufacturing, which a few examples I'll also quote. It also means manufacturing which is there at a distributed level, distributed manufacturing using 3D technology and such other things. There are maker spaces. Please note this aspect of maker spaces or maker asylum. These are basically places which pool in local resources, and they were able to manufacture even these equipments of PPE, personal protective equipment, face masks, and such other very much important things which are required. Makers Asylum. This is already in India in very major way in all the major cities. So please look it up and try to understand what are the various traditional, I mean, and non-traditional ways thinking out of the box. So this aspect I'll highlight when we are discussing Make in India, that recently government has already announced and implemented three major schemes of mobile manufacturing, electronic manufacturing. So those aspects, those are very beneficial schemes, and should be explored by the entrepreneurs. Another aspect of being able to derive a greater value from the participation in global value chains and regional value chains is by climbing up the value chain. So earlier, traditionally, we used to do assembling of mobile parts. Now OEMs are coming in to establish manufacturing, so that at least they can cater for the huge domestic market in India, which is a major driver. In addition to catering to the domestic market, they can also export once the COVID conditions stabilize. So these are two major, aspects. One I'll also highlight that you would have heard about major ports. There are major ports in Gujarat also. Uh, yeah, Kandla port is there. So taking that example, or such example, the Nhava Sheva port in Mumbai, what is happening? The latest program is that the manufacturers or entrepreneurs can bring in raw materials at no tax, and they can manufacture in custom bonded manufacturing warehouses and then export. So the aspect of tax is not there. So now coming to the other major driver of the Indian economy, which played a major role even before COVID, and it's playing a significantly important role during as the COVID pandemic pans out, is the agriculture and the rural demand. Rural demand, as you know, is already buoyant. We have a great amount of activity, and agriculture sector as such was not largely affected by the lockdown also since the first lockdown, and we have a record harvest, and the food corporation of India has a record food grain in the warehouses. So in that backdrop, we have food security, and the government also has ensured food security till November for our marginalized or socially economically poorer sections. So in that backdrop, we have to go at how the public investment in the form of Narega is happening for creation of productive assets. So as we all know, these are the sunshine areas of agriculture and rural demand that entrepreneurs should look into, because these are sectors which are still to be explored. And with the changes in three major regulatory regimes of the agricultural sector and the allied sectors, this sector has become totally attractive for private investment, and entrepreneurs to come in and enter the value chain at whichever places they feel they have the strength, or they can pool in their strength. Collaboration is the new normal. Collaboration. We'll discuss examples of collaboration of India, of Indian entrepreneurs, startups, how they have done it. So let me highlight a few major aspects which are coming out from the three major policy reforms or the legal reforms in the agriculture sector, is leading to the encouragement or of private tech technology trading platforms. In addition to the APMC, APMC normally is called Mandi, mandi, we have around 2,500 major mandis and 4,500 minor mandis across India. So in addition to that, the private entrepreneurs can provide the technology based platforms so that farmers can sell to the those buyers who are giving the maximum remunerative value for their produce. So this is one. And another aspect of as we all know, a major part of the land holdings are small in India, and all and maybe a significant number of them as marginal land owners or farmers who cannot own a standalone tractor for themselves. So increasingly private entrepreneurship or startups are happening in the aspect of Uberization of farm services. How do you provide a product? How do you convert a product into a service? That is called Uberization of farm service. How do you rent out, for example, in common understanding can be how do we rent out tractors for farmers as per their use, so that they need not do a fixed cost. They do need not incur a fixed cost of purchasing a tractor, because they may not be having the full utilization of the tractor. Also, it results in underutilization of the capital or the fixed capital. So, in addition to that, the changes in the regulatory regime are encouraging uh, gross fixed capital formation. In simple words, called investment in cold chain infrastructure, warehousing, and as you know, post harvest management is a very important area of, waiting to be explored by the entrepreneurs. Traditionally, we don't look into such aspects, but such aspects which people don't look into are the aspects which have the major potential for value generation: food processing units, logistics, insurance. So I will uh, advise that people should look into these aspects, how the regime has changed, and try to benefit from it. I'll give you one example as we go ahead. That jackfruit tikka, basically, it's there. The photo is there in the slide also. These are niche fruits or local fruits which are there. For example, this example is from our northeastern state. How young entrepreneurs, college people, college students, or college pass out, just pass outs, they could market a locally available fruit and make it into a product with a viable supply chain to reach the markets. Those products which could be sourced locally. So now let's summarize what has been the major efforts of the government. So I'll highlight those things which have a direct impact on entrepreneurship. So the aspects of definitional aspects of micro, small, and medium enterprises has been expanded in terms of both investment and turnover to include a large number of small enterprises which are hitherto not included. So please refer to a related website called udyamregistration.gov.in. So this website is basically showing that the transaction cost has been reduced significantly for enterprises to get registered, and it is always advisable so that if the enterprises register themselves, then they are able to connect to the formal aspects of economy, get formal finance, get benefits of the government incentive schemes and support measures. So it's always advisable. That's why this udyamregistration.gov.in, as we are in Gujarat as we speak, a land of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, this email is extremely important. Those enterprises which are hitherto not registered, probably we have to realize that it is a cost involved, not non-registration. Because once so many aspects of credit, the advancement of credit by the banks, especially it has been announced in the recent policy announcements, also in the economic package, that around 3 lakh crores of credit is being encouraged to be advanced to the enterprises. So to avail those benefits, to avail the credit, formal credit, so that the business activity can be boosted, one has to get registered. And this udyamregistration.gov.in is very extremely important because it reduces transaction. Need not visit the office. Just the basic requirements of document updation in that online portal, and then once you get once the enterprise gets registered, it can avail the benefits. So again, the MSME sector um, is an extremely important sector of the Indian economy. More than 90 percentage of the it has more than 90 percentage of the spread in terms of employment intensity, employs a large amount of people. Also, if I talk in terms of the sheer numbers, it is 63 million. Roughly 63 million enterprises are there in India. It's a major chunk. If we talk about the major chunk of Indian economy, it is MSME. So that is the importance of the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And let us remember, startups also have a very beneficial definition. So the startup definition, you can look up that definition, which is given by the Indian law, is very beneficial, very startup friendly, so that they should not, they need not be incurring the tax aspects for a certain period. So it's very beneficial. Let me highlight a few takeaways from this slide. So the takeaways for the small enterprises, that the liquidity aspect has to be, liquidity basically means conserving cash for the short term, so that the liquidity problem doesn't become a solvency problem. Solvency problem basically leads to liquidation of the company, bankruptcy of the company. So to prevent that, that should be the major driving objective, that the liquidity, the present liquidity problem or the liquidity problem of the enterprise should not become a solvency problem. For that, the enterprises have to redefine the fixed cost. They have to focus on sharing of resources, pooling of their resources, pooling of their orders, and so that they can share the cost when they are delivering the goods. So they have to rethink. They have to collaborate. Collaborate is one takeaway from the discussion can be that collaboration is extremely important for MSMEs to survive, for any entrepreneurs to come up, for any sector for that matter. I'll give the example uh, of Amul. How Amul even during the first phase of the lockdown, which was strictest, uh, uh, in that also the Amul supply chain could be executed uninterrupted. It was because that Amul believed in the gain sharing, in inclusion of the milk producers uh, in the aspect of gain sharing of the surpluses. They could give the ownership to the producers. That aspect has to be realized. But once the customers or the users have trust and believe that this is our venture and we are going to benefit from it collectively, then it has a very high sustainability index. So another aspect of monetizing all the non-usable aspects can be very much beneficial. And let me highlight extremely important point related to receivables financing, because generally it is said that MSMEs advance services to corporates, to other economic agents, and they may entail some time in getting their money back. So there is an electronic platform. One should remember that we should spread this message, because this will benefit the MSMEs in a very major way. That is called the trade receivables trades platform, trade receivables electronic platform. So trades platform, please remember, please try to spread this, use it also when you are entering into enterprise entrepreneurial activities. Trades platform, it's being given a major push. It's being connected to the global to the government e-marketplace, gem. Again, a very important aspect for entrepreneurs. Remember, please register your products on gem, so that you can avail the supplies, or you can avail the orders from one of the major uh, um, I mean the customers which are in the government side, public sector, states. So the government e-marketplace is getting very much facilitated and getting seamlessly connected with Trades platform. So basically, the business models have to be rethought to go to digital touch points, because as the pandemic exists right now, the physical touch points have been minimized. So how do we go to digital touch points? We'll look at a few examples as we go ahead. So
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Can you share your screen once again? There has been some issue. Someone accidentally shared their screen, so your screen won't be recorded.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, it's visible now.
Yeah, sure. So please remember, let us please all remember and utilize this. MSME sector is not the other thing which is there around in the corner. It is all of us. MSME sector is the heart and soul of the Indian economy. So the aspects of credit, liberalized credit are there from SIDBI. So many schemes are there. Please look it up. It's all available in the public domain. Government e-marketplace is there, and this is not only for the MSME sector; it's extremely relevant even for startups because they are product startup. Product startup is also extremely important in addition to the technology startups. If it's a product startup, it's a pharma startup, because we are sitting in Vadodara pharmaceutical hub. So if it's a pharma startup or some other related startup, they need to understand that the government as a customer, they need to explore they need to leverage that. And another aspect of PSB loans in 59 minutes, basically that leverages all your available data related to income tax and GST and gives the in principle approval totally online. Later the disbursement happens through the bank, but the approval is given totally online. So such aspects and many other aspects are there which probably the limited time may not allow us to discuss here, but one has to leverage all the aspects of the landscape. And the trades are very important because the MSME sector, the startups, basically since they are starting up, as the name suggests, they want and customer is extremely important. So they tend to give credit on credit, and converting that credit cycle, because as we know, cash to credit cycle is extremely important in business. Cash to credit cycle is basically like the main heart of whether a firm will run or not. If it is has a very efficient and a short cash to cash cycle, then that business is going to be extremely efficient. So cash to cash cycle, that gets slightly elongated in case of small enterprises. To cater to that, to cater to that aspect, these electronic platforms are there where there is a platform which facilitates financing of the bills or the invoices. The invoices on based on the invoices, the small enterprises get their money, and the banks buy those things and they get the money from the people who buy those invoices. So that aspect of receivables financing or bill discounting, which you would have studied in your financial subjects, is extremely important. And that is, there are major platforms which are already there in a big way. So this has to be utilized. This is applicable both for products and services. Infrastructure, as you all know, is a major part. Construction sector is very much important because it has a lot of multiplier effects. Around 100, 200 such industries are directly or indirectly connected. So there's a major focus on that also. And as you all know, cement and steel is a major sector which have direct correlation or correlation with the construction sector. We have a capital outlay of around 100 lakh crore spread over 5 years, 20 lakh crore per year for the national infrastructure pipeline. So basically, you have to look that where the money, public money is getting put, you should remember that there may be opportunities where the private investment can crowd in, or entrepreneurs can think about on which part of the value chain they can create value. Basically, business is all about creating value. If you create value, if there is value which the customer sees in your goods and services, your business venture will be successful. This is a one sentence spirit of management studies or MBA. So this is a global startup landscape. Why I'm showing this? To show you that India is also performing quite well, and you can see the blob there for India. So India is also significantly rising quite high. So it's all upon us to take it to greater heights. Because as you all know, we are enjoying a demographic dividend right now. But the demographic dividend, as demographers say, is going to close by the year 2036. So we have a limited window where we need to utilize this. After that, we'll have the proportion of aging population will be more than the working age population. So these are the major aspects, like what startups can get from the various I mean financial agencies, from the government, from the state. So let me start with the COVID startup assistance scheme, which is there by the SIDBI. Another aspect you could relate is that whenever there are ventures, because generally entrepreneur thinks I want to do this, but how do I start? What are the informations available? And naturally, he cannot go and buy the proprietary Gartner reports, which are extremely priced. So naturally, he has to go to open sources. And let me tell you, there are significant amount of open sources which are there, ministry websites or database like Crunchbase. Please remember this Crunchbase is extremely important. So these give data about the sectors or markets so that you can have a fair idea about what you're visualizing, whether it may succeed in the marketplace, what are the chances for it. Mm, so other incentives are a lot of incentives are there for Startup India program, and then the aspect of easing of compliances requirements are there, and and as you all know, since business entails risks, entrepreneur by its definition is a person who takes risks. And when there is a business risk, there is a probability of success or failure. So the public policy is placed in such a way to encourage the entry and exit of firms, to encourage the free, I mean the easy entry and exit of firms. In that background, the insolvency law has also been amended, and it has been largely successful in reallocating the economic assets once a company gets bankrupt, so that those assets can be productively utilized by some other enterprise, which is more profitable, which is more economically viable and productive for the economy as a whole. Some examples of things which generally we tend to think that, oh, it may not be that money generation or something of that kind, but then those aspects which we tend to put to the sidelines may be the actual sunrise sectors. So let me highlight the sunrise sectors, which are also very commonplace, uh, but just to emphasize the point, software as a service, software as a service SaaS, or platform as a service. Platform as a service, for example, as you all know, Zoom has got so much, market share, and such video conferencing platform, for example. I'm just taking examples so that we can relate it better. We should not consume anything more than that. So, edutech platforms, but edutech in the Indian scenario has to be thought of of a educational technology which is inclusive, which is mindful of the digital aspects of availability of broadband, availability of electricity, and the purchasing power. We should remember that we are aiming at a market which has a segmented purchasing power. So and it also entails that we provide quality products. How do we provide quality products? By removing those aspects of the product or services which may not be necessary, but not by reducing the quality. We need to reduce the cost by maximizing the value with the minimum cost, by frugal innovation, and aim at the segment which is largely underserved right now, underserved or unserved markets, because unserved markets and underserved markets are also the opportunity areas. I'll give you the example of a successful example from China. It's called Taibao. Taibao basically is from the internet company of Alibaba. So Taibao, what does it do? It brings the offerings or uh, from the rural markets to the urban markets. So we have an artisanal strength of around 100 million in this country. And those artisanal values, one such example which we can relate it very much, because we may see malls, Fab India, just a name. But I'm trying to express the point that there are so many other artisanal skills and the artisanal artifacts which are there waiting to be offered to the markets, and in which there will be a greater economic value generation, and also the wealth or the economic value can be divided amongst the various economic segments, socio-economic segments. So, and in the aspect of reverse migration, we could see that in the fallout of the COVID pandemic, there was a reverse migration of skill sets back to the villages. So one should think about. We could see in your own neighborhoods, or probably as we most of us may belong to some village, we could see in our own villages how uh, the skill sets which are available there needs to be leveraged by having a frugal innovative model wherein technology can also be brought in, but technology as an enabler. First we need to identify the business, the problem that we are attending. Then we have to use a technology which is appropriate, not identify the technology blockchain. I want to use blockchain. Now I have to force fit into some problem. No, it is not that. It will not succeed. First, we need to identify a real life problem. In marketing, we call it needs. We need to identify the needs. I'm not talking of the wants, needs. So the needs, if you identify the needs properly, needs you can identify. You can identify by having in-depth interview with your target users. You can identify by studying the pattern, by having foot on the ground. It doesn't mean that we need to read all the high level reports. If you have foot on the ground, if you are using your, I mean, your strategic sense of integrating all the aspects from various disciplines, and then you can understand what are the needs, actual needs, where the entrepreneurial efforts can be made. And then, if technology is required, you can leverage your technology by collaborating with those technology providers. If per se you're not a technology provider yourself. So successful examples from Gujarat, I can give you Okai. Okai.org basically is a venture which brings the artisanal products of women from the rural places to the urban markets. A successful venture there. So other aspects which are doing very well are related to health technology. Health technology also has to be remembered that we have significant amount of health infrastructure in village and semi-urban areas. So once we are thinking about health intervention, doesn't mean that we are thinking only about the urban market that we are presently right now. But this is see, the present economic, I mean, product profile is primarily aimed at around 150 million of the population. But you know, where does 150 million stand in front of the entire population of India? And if we talk in terms of the purchasing power, so that at the end of the day, the bottom line also has to be thought through. So we need to look at the purchasing. Even if we look at the purchasing power, presently what we cater to is around 150 million, the consumer base primarily. So, but if we expand the offerings to those offerings like which are related to health, education, affordable housing, we were discussing about infrastructure. Affordable housing is a major important sector, which actually is the focus of the government also, and it has multiplier effects. One of the effects which is totally visible right now, there will be rental housing for the labor when they are working in places like Surat, for example. I'm just taking an example so that we can relate it better. Surat or such other industrial towns. So that they have a place where they can work, and their transaction costs or the transportation costs, conveyance costs, or such other costs, related costs are minimum, so that they can go to the workplaces, and also the industry also gets benefited. So such aspects of uh, have also to be thought through in the Indian context. So as you all know, banking, financial services, and insurance (BFSI) sector is a major sector which is undergoing disruptions. Why? Because there are certain inefficiencies presently, probably in the international remittances, such other some work processes. So where does technology intervene? It intervenes at those places in the value chain where there are inefficiencies. So one of the hints for entrepreneurs is that they have to identify what are the inefficiencies in the present way of doing things. For that, you need to understand what is happening. That's all. And let me highlight how fintech is disrupting the banking sector, because fintech is reducing the cost. They're using the technology. And now, for example, I'll give you the example. Especially during pandemic, onboarding of customers, I mean, opening a new bank account, especially relevant for microfinance institutions and such other customers, such other banking institutions who have to onboard customers. How do they do? Physical touch points have been reduced. So video KYC. KYC, as you know, many of us would be having bank accounts. So we know how KYC is extremely important. Know your customer. So KYC is actually a legal requirement also. So the banks have to fulfill that KYC. How do they do it? Through video KYC. And already video KYC has been launched by Kotak Mahindra Bank after RBI approval. So these are one such example. There are many examples which we can discuss. So retail. Retail sector is undergoing a major change. Retail, as you know, is a very important sector, and there have been major changes in the Indian landscape also because of coming of various technology partners like Google, Facebook, along with Reliance. Just an example, and there are many other changes also in the sector. I'm just giving some examples. Uh, there may be many other examples also. So logistics, let us remember, is extremely important in the Indian context. We have a country of subcontinental proportions, and logistics, it's always said that that a business which has control over its logistics or supply chain will will generally succeed. Agri-tech is a major kid on the block whom we don't recognize. We have unicorns right now as we speak. Unicorns who are totally from the agri-tech sector. Agri-tech unicorns. Million dollar funds they have raised. Example is AgroStar. So we have to look at those sectors probably we are traditionally which is not there in our mind space. So just to emphasize the same points, I'll take a second or two. Uh, Pharma sector, FMCG, e-commerce, remote working, tech infrastructure. You say remote working is tending to become a new normal. Twitter has announced all to work from home. TCS has also laid out a work from home plan. So even government, as we speak, government of India. I'm quoting from the policy of Department of Personnel and Training, and the policy which has been quoted, or the discussion paper which has been circulated, that is a proposal for government servants to work for 15 days. I mean, after the COVID, I'm talking about as a regular practice, 15 days from home, working from home in a year. So that why I'm giving you this example is that this remote working aspect or working from anywhere, that aspect business enterprises have to cater in their strategy thinking, because that has become how to leverage that while not compromising on the product quality or product and service quality. Online education, again, very extremely important, but we have to remember how online education can be provided to those kids who may not be having regular internet access. So that is also very important, how we can use leverage the televisions and OTT entertainment. As you know, movie theaters are not functioning, so most of the new releases are happening on over the top mediums, Netflix for example. So that is the commonplace thing which we would be seeing in our lives. So cab aggregators, naturally, travel has reduced, financial services, FMCG, and okay, descent. Deep descent basically are those sectors which probably have to rethink the business models. Airline, hospitality sector. I will also, when I'm saying that we need to rethink, I'll give you examples how some entrepreneurs have already rethought, and they are doing a good job at it, even during the COVID pandemic. So there's a pharma sector value chain. Just a point or two from here, that as we all know, and that India is the generic medicine capital of the world, which has been a human service for especially the poorer countries of the world, where we could be able to provide the generic medicines at a relatively lower cost. Uh, India has done a very wonderful job in that sense. The entrepreneurs and the pharma sector, for that matter. But the Achilles heels is related to active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. APIs is the Achilles heels, which we need to make it strong. And the COVID pandemic, and with the aspect of with the change in dynamics of the value of the supply chain of APIs emanating from China to India, especially I mean pharma hubs of Gujarat, how that API supply of API from China post pandemic affected the manufacturing has also led to rethinking of the pharma sector value chain. And many of the companies have thought through, and they are already utilizing this opportunity to manufacture APIs in India. So this is actually probably an opportunity to venture into those parts of the value chain in which India traditionally was not there. So and this is a this is a condition where China presently, because of, or for that matter any country for that matter, is having the same health crisis. So almost everybody is in the same boat. So we these I mean companies have to figure out a way in which one can enter into these manufacturing also, but it has to be thought through. Unit economics and those aspects have to be thought through, but external forces are sort of conducive for that, because the competition from international markets for API will be less because of the COVID aspects, COVID impacts on the international trade. So this is the Atal Innovation Mission, another venture of the government, spearheaded through the Niti Aayog, which is basically meant for encouraging innovative thinking, entrepreneurial thinking, starting from schools. We have Tinkering Labs, probably Gujarat University would also be having. So, and such other things. For MSME sector also, we have uh, institutional structures. We have community structures for encouraging entrepreneurship. Basically, why I'm telling you all this, that we have to look out. It should be it should be demand driven, not supply driven. So we need to, our stakeholders need to utilize the benefits available. We need to go and search for it and utilize it. It's all being public resources already there in the common public domain. So we have to leverage those. The recent announcement under the Atal Innovation Mission has been relating to the app development. App development, as you know, app is also a major form of delivery of products and services. And especially with the recent announcement of the uh, some apps from a certain country, which actually had a certain impact on the ecosystem of app development. So this is extremely important. The timely step uh, of providing public instructional material free of cost on the Atal Innovation Mission website. Some very quick examples of how thinking about the triple bottom line is extremely important. Triple bottom line, as we all know, is people per profit, and the purpose aspects is very important. We need to focus on those aspects so that the business is sustainable in the long run. So just a few examples for that. Arvind Eye Care System, as you all know, is a very important um, health initiative, and a very successful one, which could cater to the lower socioeconomic segments of the population, especially as you, the protagonist was Dr. V. Govindarajan. In late 1970s, he had served as an army doctor, and thereafter he moved. And in those, you can imagine those times, such social entrepreneurs could think that we need to provide affordable eye care to people who couldn't even afford. So let's come to contemporary examples. This is also Aravind Aigar is also a contemporary example. So other very successful examples of business ventures who are extremely successful while having the people, and while having the purpose at the core of their organization, or the triple bottom line at the core of the organization, is Khan Academy. You know what is the motto? What is the vision goal of the Khan Academy? Providing free education anywhere, anytime. And it's such a successful venture, and moreover, to add on that, it is a non-profit. It's such an important non-profit for that matter, in terms of value generation, value creation, that there's is a classic success story, a case study for best business schools across the world. And at its DNA, it has the needs of the kids across the socio-economic spectrum, because it's catering to a fundamental need, which is not focused only on a certain segment, but across the socio-economic segment. Let me add the latest development which are happening in the Khan Academy space, is that um, there are there are technology ventures happening from universities in US, which are actually catering to provide the Khan Academy, which is there on the internet platform, to those kids who are still not having access to broadband. In even US, there is a certain amount of digital divide in developed countries also, as we know. So technology ventures are happening on the top of the platform of Khan Academy to bring the Khan Academy content to those kids who may not be having access to regular internet, broadband, and digital devices. So at a frugal level, they can be provided hardware and the concerned telecommunication network. Another example from India is Turtle, which has environmentalism at its core. And a global example is Patagonia. Patagonia is basically a die-hard environmentalist at the core. So they themselves, basically Patagonia is a company which does manufacture, which manufactures outdoor apparels. And they themselves say, if you don't require it, don't purchase it. You can basically reuse it. So that is a sense of uh, their purpose towards environment. So what I'm trying to say, summarize this entire discussion on the slide is that companies or ventures have to think about purpose also. Those days have gone, and COVID pandemic also has brought to the fore the importance to health, public health, climate, and as you all know, climate change is already there. Some experts already say that we have the last decade to change to work for the climate change. So, Reimagined is another Indian venture which is focused on reduce, reuse, and recycle concept of circular economy. It's basically reuses the disposed materials and creates economic value out of it. Some examples, I'll just give the highlight one example from here. My lab COVID-19 test kits. My lab COVID-19 test kit is basically a totally indigenous venture, and it is made by a Indian biochemical, I mean biomedical engineer from Pune. And what they have done, it's a not a so not a that old company or venture, or not that a major MNC kind of thing. But what they could do, they're 7 to 8 year or around that was the age of the venture. What they could do is they could bring the complementary skills which were required to produce a COVID-19 test kits in India. So they had the skill set, domain knowledge. Domain knowledge is extremely important, because once if some there is a startup which wants to go into pharma sector, naturally they have to understand the pharma fundamentals. So or if they want to go for agri sector, they need to understand the agri fundamentals. They may not be knowing all the chemicals required, but they need to understand the fundamentals. So my lab COVID-19, what they could do, they could leverage the partnership from the companies like Syngene. Syngene is basically a arm of Biocon. They could also leverage the partnership from the vaccine, I mean Serum Institute of India. So and together, as a collaboration, Indian collaboration, they could manufacture COVID-19 test kits indigenously at a cost-effective manner and in a large numbers, which was very much required, as you know. So many such things are there. Indian startups are there which have been able to produce cost-effective, I mean, protection equipment, which is naturally very much in need now. It will be there quite some time, and probably longer term. So some aspects I will highlight from this slide is related to collaboration. Collaboration, we are witnessing collaboration between competitors, traditional competitors. For example, contact tracing app, two major internet service technology providers, they are collaborating for for making a contact tracing app. For example, India has also made one contact tracing app. So they are trying to make the best one, which is totally privacy, protects the privacy as far as to the maximum extent possible. And there are collaborations between competitors. If we talk about 3M and GE Healthcare collaborating on a simplified ventilator design, they are actually exchanging the patents so that they can arrive at a in a faster manner at a product which is totally required right now. Some examples I'll give you from the tour and hospitality sector, how they have fashioned their business models. This is an Indian example, Tour HQ. Tour HQ also on the slide. Tour HQ basically the Indian venture. What happens? What it does? The value proposition is that it connects all the tour guides across the globe to the target users or the customers. So as we all know, it's common understanding that the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted this business model. So what did they do? They went ahead and because it was also catering at those tour guides who are usually at the lower part of the economic spectrum. So what they could do is they could try to give data packs to their tour guides, or probably could create a model wherein data packs could be provided, and the, for example, a person in Dharavi, this is a real case study. Dharavi could actually connect virtually and have a virtual guide of the Dharavi to the target users. So this is a business model which got realigned to this aligned to the circumstances, to the external environment. So that aspect also has to be there. Another aspect, as we all know, is platform economies. Platform economies, commonplace understandings, Uber, Ola, for that matter, any other platform, they are actually having a major impact on the various value chains and supply chains and how business is being conducted. So that aspect also has to be thought through when we talk about brick and mortar or click and mortar having a multiple presence. So all those aspects are very important, because how you reach the customer. Because what do platform economies do? They basically bring the customer and the service provider, the product manufacturer together in a most efficient manner, and they allocate the requirements accordingly. For example, what does Uber do? Uber basically allocates efficiently the vehicle to the nearest user, and in that manner it actually makes it efficient. That's why there is a justification for the platform. So another other real life examples we have, especially which is becoming very commonplace and dominant, is use of conversational AI, artificial intelligence, like chatbots. For example, let me give you a business example. Bajaj Finserv is already using a chatbot called Blue. So such chatbots already there, which are trying to use artificial intelligence of old data, and so that they can figure out questions, common questions which are asked by the users, and they can try to give an answer. So those aspects which can be automated are getting automated. So uh, these are some case studies wherein we could see that our Indian manufacturers also, they could reposition their manufacturing chains, and for example Mahindra, they could reposition and manufacture hand sanitizers. Diageo, alcohol beverage manufacturer, they could reposition and manufacture hand sanitizers. This P2I is basically a Oxford, UK-based nanotechnology film company. Nanotechnology film. They put nanotechnology films on top of mobile phones, and it had a factory in China. So the case study goes like this: the factory in China naturally got shut, and the because of the COVID pandemic, especially early in the year, and and the and the factory managers got quarantined in a nearby hotel. So how could the P2I, being a industry 4.0 compliant? Industry 4.0 basically means that you are using technology to the hilt to automate all the processes, and using the cyber physical systems to the extent possible to make it efficient. So since it was totally industry 4.0 compliant, the managers sitting in UK, Oxford company, they could control even the Chinese plant, because it was totally using sensors and such other requirements were being done by the automated things. So these are some aspects of nudges, and I'll just give a business example. Uh, Lemonade is basically an insurance service provider, financial service provider. What does it do? Basically, see, nowadays what interventions are happening, business ventures they are happening, is they are trying to make it more efficient, or they can have a differentiated product. Once you are having a differentiated product service, it entails cost also. So one has to balance out. So what does Lemonade do? Lemonade is basically a enterprise. What it tries to reduce the time required for purchase of an insurance policy, and also the disbursement of the money in case the policy has to be honored. So what does it do? How does it use behavioral design solution? What it does is that when the customers are declaring their details once they are applying for the policy, the the integrity statement that I certify that whatever I will be writing is true and correct, that comes at the start rather than coming at the end. So actually that is having an impact on the person when he's filling the remaining form. And they have done a quantitative study on that. How can we minimize the cost, and what is the cost benefit analysis if we use this, and with using that they have reduced the time. They say that around 2 to 3 minutes for a policy to be generated online. So these are the examples. These are commonplace examples nowadays. The behavioral change and the behavioral design aspects which we see in our environment. How common understanding of behavioral economics, behavioral change, or nudges, as we speak. There's a nudge unit in the Niti Aayog also. So as we speak, is that when in the early part of the lockdown, we could see that when the food or, for example, any other essential commodities were getting distributed, there were circles which are drawn on the ground. That was also a behavioral indication that people can maintain the physical distancing. One aspect of persuasion in real life, real public life, and business life, extremely important. Persuasion basically means that how do you persuade in a manner in which the person willingly tries to understand the value or the value proposition that the entrepreneur is presenting. So for that, or the point of view that the person is presenting. So persuasion is a very important skill nowadays, and how to manage change, management of change. Change is, as you all know, is the only permanent thing. So change, as we speak, and probably COVID may be one of the variables for change. There may be many other variables which may be lined up as we see, go through the years. There may be other changes which may be there. So having an aptitude and an attitude to handle change extremely becomes important. John Cotter's eight parameter framework is also very important. Let me highlight a major takeaway from that is how do you enlist support for change from your colleagues and from your team members. So how do you basically top down approaches generally have a great amount of limitation, imposing change, then okay, tomorrow you'll use this. Probably by having a organic way by which the team itself realizes that it is inherent, or it is in their own self interest, or it is the interest of the company or the venture or the sector that it does that change. So that will be leading to, and how to sustain that, basically you have to envision a sense, you have to give them the purpose that okay, this change that we are doing, change, basically entrepreneurs who do not plan for change, who do not see change, are destined to be eliminated from the marketplace. Another very important aspect before I wrap up is related to the aspect of emotional intelligence. Extremely important aspect. Uh, Most of it is taught in business schools, Dan and Goldman's framework. But I need to I will be highlighting some aspects from my personal experience, from my administrative experience. Is the aspect of empathy. Empathy in common sense means that how do you get into somebody else's shoes. So how can one get into somebody else's shoes? By removing one's shoes first. If one is wearing his own shoes or her own shoes, how can he or she get into somebody else's shoes? So this example shows that we need to be totally bereft of our own ideas in the sense when we are listening to the other person, of our own inclinations or our own first it is also called our own biases, prejudices, and then listen, empathize. Empathy is also the core principle or the centerpiece of design thinking. Design thinking is very much relevant today in business world. Design thinking basically looks at the needs, actual needs, both material needs and emotional needs of the users. So for that, the empathy, the quotient of empathy has to be extremely important. And empathy is not only confined to psychology. It's compiled, it's actually a very important concept which is there out in the open. If I speak about military, if I speak about state, if I speak about government, if I speak about public service, if I speak of core non-profit work, if I speak of core for-profit work, empathy is the in thing. It's very much important. We need to integrate that aspect. Teamwork, without teamwork, I do not think much is possible. So there's a leadership mix. which I generally believe in, is integrity. The importance of integrity, professional excellence. That professional excellence is leading to the aspect of domain expertise. One has to have certain amount of domain knowledge. Domain can be any domain, and the aspect of team spirit. These three things I realize. Integrity, the aspect of integrity, let me emphasize. Integrity basically in simple terms means that what I'm speaking right now, I believe in, and I also do it. So it is basically an integral whole, that what and that integrity aspect percolates downwards to the when you are a manager in a business firm. Once you join a company, you are a manager and you have a team, and the team believes in you. Why? Because you have integrity. What you say, basically, you also do it, and that actually gives a long lasting value. And if you have stiff deadlines, stiff targets, then the team will deliver to the extent possible. Thank you, friends. These were some of the thoughts. I'm open for the questions and your thoughts, and feel free to ask your questions and share your feedback. And you can always connect with me on my social coordinates, which are there on LinkedIn and Twitter. Most welcome to connect with me. Thank you.
Yeah, we are going to share your social media handle on in the chat box as well. And thank you so much for a very enriching session. Now we'll take some questions that we already have in the chat box, and then we'll move on to other questions that we already had in the form that we circulated. So there is one question from Vandana Sharma, which is, will boycotting Chinese products result in any increase in manufacturing activities? So I think that is what the recent top of the town is.
Yeah, yeah, that is a very important question, and thank you for the question. So we have to think from the aspect of strategy also. Manufacturing is a given thing that is very important for us. Even though we are services led economy, but manufacturing is very important. So the aspect of whether boycotting may result into that or not, uh, can be answered in a very big, in a broader format. But the canvas is that broader canvas. Look at the broader canvas. Being management students or business management students, one has to realize that you have to look at many other variables which may not catch the headlines of newspapers. So we have to look. That is where the difference is between a successful person and an unsuccessful person. So you have to look at the finer print. What does the finer print say? That uh, it may be a positive incentive. The phenomena that was mentioned may be a positive incentive for local manufacturers to invest in manufacturing of the products, or provide services. For example, app development, public instruction material is there freely available on the Atal Innovation Missions, aiming at exploiting the opportunity, so that we have youngsters, we have technology students, which we have engineering college students who are tech savvy. They may refer to some guidance material which is there, which is of the best quality, and they can design apps. And then, after getting verified on the various play stores, it can be uploaded, can be used. So this is called exploiting of the opportunity. So as entrepreneurs, as value creators, as wealth creators, entrepreneurs are the wealth creators of of the economy. So we have to think about opportunities arising out of the phenomenon. I hope I could answer the question. So we have to think of what the entrepreneurs can benefit from it, and it will
Absolutely.
Hello,
certainly
sir.
have an impact. It will have a positive impact on the manufacturing landscape.
Right. Okay, Mitesh, you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sir. There is one view that the current ban on Chinese app is temporary in nature to build some strategic pressure. So, is it temporary or will it be permanent?
So thank you for the question. So see, there are always strategic steps, okay, which are taken by the various actors. So uh, be that as it may, I don't know, I'm not making a comment on that. So my reflection or thoughts are confined to the business or the entrepreneurial aspects. So be that as it may, it certainly gives a window of opportunity to the Indian youth, to or the Indian entrepreneurs or the Indian service providers to exploit it to the hilt. So nobody can say that it is not an opportunity. It is definitely an opportunity, and the The bottom line is that at the end of the day, I'm not talking about banning or no banning. I'm talking about the product or service provider who delivers quality at a cost effective manner with a good empathy component. Basically empathy component translates into post service, post sale service management, so it's going to succeed. And why we are global, we have global players in two wheeler. India is a global player. For example, I'm just giving some examples. In two wheeler manufacturing and cluster, the amount of expertise that India has, indigenous expertise. I'm not talking about space and all. I'm talking about common day, real. Common day sectors which we can relate to. Two wheeler segment, many other segments. And if let us have a uh, look at a few examples of human capital which is there across the world. You will not be surprised to find Indians. So, so we have to think, exploit the opportunity, have a thought through plan. We need not worry about such things which are maybe strategic in nature, but we have to exploit. An entrepreneur is more concerned about his own business model, the sustainability of his business model, not about the external environment. External environment we do not have control. The very nature, the very definition of entrepreneurship is risk handling and risk management. I hope I could answer the very spirit of the question.
Sir, the reason I was asking that question is I also worked in a social media company. We had a social media app for vernacular languages. It was Indian made, and the problem with our company, problem we faced was our competitor, which operate in social media space like Hello and other Chinese companies. They have so much deep pockets, so they spent too much money on customer acquisition that the Indian startups do not have. So they build some. So our company got closed last February because of that. So yeah, that is the
So I
main
got you.
main.
I got your aspect. So probably what I can relate now is that this is an individual example. So probably and it is before COVID, I think it seems. So one can discuss it because it's a proprietary some company's example. So we can discuss it probably. Okay, we can move on to the next question.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I think there's a question from Dipesh. He wants to know, about government's e-marketplace initiative and maybe if there are any issues facing the this initiative.
Yeah, very good question. And again, one needs to exploit the government e-marketplace, and the government is doing a lot in that space. Uh, and government e-marketplace, basically, let me add a few points once the question has come. So basically, what is happening in government e-marketplace is basically a agglomeration of the various states and public sector and government entities, and as per the financial rules of the government they are mandated to purchase through government e-marketplace. And the very nature of government e-marketplace is that it is totally, minimizes the transaction cost to the minimum. Transaction cost, basically the service provider, the product provider need not visit the office, government office. Being in a government office myself, I can say we place orders on GEM, government e-marketplace. I don't even know the supplier. I'm in the vendor, and it has to be like that. It goes to most of it, and our small scale industries, MSMEs are there on the platform. And it's also reported that quite a significant number of the orders are going to first time entrepreneurs and MSME sectors. So it all depends on how much this is being exploited by the various stakeholders, and how the entrepreneurs or the MSME sector gets onboarded it. Even I could just give an example, because once the COVID pandemic, lockdown started, and I appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit of this place, Gujarat, that some of the service providers reached out to me. Okay, so we have manufactured this product, this sanitizers, the standing format or all these things, touch free and all this. I gave him, and probably, and that vendor, I could tell that he was not aware of GM. I told first thing, kindly do, I shared the link, kindly register on this. And there was no visit to office, nothing. Just they have to fill up the form, and it was registered, and he could put his products. So with that simple step, he enlarged his market. So please utilize this. And also the very important point is that GEM is also getting integrated with the Trades platform. Trades is another important platform. Please utilize it and spread the word, because I find with my own interactions that some of the MSMEs are still not using it in a big way. Trades is very important. Trades is related to bills finance or financing of receivables. I mean, the MSME is given some services products, and they are still waiting for the money. So that trades comes in between that and facilitates the provision of the money to the MSME sector. So with GEM and trades getting facilitated, what will happen is that the small enterprise will showcase its products and services. The purchaser, state government, public sector, so many entities are there in the government. It's one of the major, I mean, purchasers, as you all know, in India, the government bodies. So they will purchase, and then if there is certain credit cycle, then what will come? Trades platform will come in between, intermediate, and get the money provided to the small enterprise. So please let us utilize this to the maximum.
Absolutely. Okay, so here we go to the next question. It's from Sagar, and he is asking about the role of blockchain in fintech
Yes.
industry, and how it will impact our revenue and overall Indian economy.
Very good question, and this is really a relevant question, and we have to put it in the right perspective. This blockchain aspect. Blockchain basically is like blockchain is basically a distributed network. Okay, it's a distributed ledger system. I hope this screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So this will be used to highlight the major aspects of blockchain. Blockchain. Let us understand. Let's go beyond the hype. Entrepreneurs look at the substance. That is one of the takeaways that we can have. Is entrepreneurs by their very nature look at the substance, and the substance of blockchain is that what is the value proposition of blockchain? The value proposition of blockchain is that it provides transparency, provenance, you can trace back, and it provides trust, and it is basically doesn't have any intermediation. For example, in what do banks do? Banks provide the intermediation services. It intermediates between the credit provider and the credit receiver. So what do blockchains do? It uses a distributed ledger system, and the control is there with all the nodes, and it decentralizes trust. It basically a zero trust environment. This is the basic understanding of blockchain. Now let us relate it to the financial space. How does blockchain play in that? So blockchain, having understood the aspects of blockchain, what is the value proposition offered by blockchain, so one can himself or herself relate which are the inefficiencies in the financial space, BFSI space. I'll give real life examples for this. There is a SBI bank chain. It's a consortium of banks, including SBI, who are working on having a blockchain solution wherein they can actually make some processes transparent, and have a traceability aspect to that. Now let us give some examples. Once we have come to this topic, let's give one example, some related examples, you can, so that you can relate it far better. So is that it has also been successful in various international trade also, and in having a traceability of the food, especially in COVID times. What we know, what we want to understand is that from where the food has been produced. So it will trace the blockchain. These are all implemented examples. So what the blockchain does is that it traces the path, provenance. It's called provenance. So in the fintech space also, blockchain has to give some value, and it has to be attending to a problem of the existing financial uh, workflows. So it is a case to case example. The answer to the question is that how it will disrupt. It's already many of the technologies are already disrupting BFSI sector in a very big way. That is a given thing. Okay, now how blockchain will intervene or intersect with various inefficiencies is a case-to-case based example. Okay.
All right. So moving to the next question. Indian economy and global supply chain has been hit very hard, and what are the steps that we can take to strengthen our supply chain?
So strengthening supply chain is very important. For that, two aspects I will highlight. One is agility, and second is resilience. Probably students who would have gone through the supply chain management subjects would relate to these two concepts. These are the heart of supply chain, present day supply chains. Resilience, as we also discussed during the presentation, resilience is basically to having the ability, inherent ability to tackle crisis. So COVID-19, as we discussed in the initial slides, is a shock. So it is a given shock, and it's a given condition. So how does the supply chain tackle to that? That aspect is related to resilience. Second is agility. Agility is that aspect of the supply chain which empowers the supply chain to agile to changing needs of the customers, changing needs of the market demand. So these are two basic concepts. Now relating it to the ground level, to entrepreneurial level, at the firm level. What do firms have to do? First important aspect is the firms have to understand who are the target users or customers, and what should be the distribution strategy, and what should be the cost effective distribution strategy, how the online platforms can be utilized, because as you all know, marginal cost of addition of an additional incremental user on an online platform is very less. So online mediums have to be used, have to be leveraged in the business models depending on the need of the business model. So that aspect is very important. Another aspect is related to what are the various aspects, how does the supply chain of the firm or entity interact with the larger environment. For example, some firm may be a provider of, for example, IV needles. We have I mean test tube babies. There are I know of units in Vadodara itself who manufacture some some materials and some industrial parts for the test tube baby manufacturing equipments. So they are having manufacturing some parts of it. So they have to cater to whether it's operating the B2B segment, B2C segment. They have to understand that, and the supply chain requirements will be different for those things. So even in COVID pandemic, one has to realize that how wherever there are physical touch points, because of the constraint, naturally you have to guard against the COVID coronavirus also. That is a priority number one, because if because that will also ensure the business continuity of the functioning. Already there are the economy has opened up in a major way. So for it is for the enterprises to guard against the health hazard, so that their business functions don't get affected. So it is in the interest of the units themselves. So what do they do? They will understand if it's a manufacturing needles for that the test tube baby manufacturing setup, or that implement or devices. So who are the customers? How we were traditionally reaching them, and how the COVID has impacted. So they can accordingly maneuver their supply chains from physical touchpoints to digital touchpoints. So that can happen. It's a case-to-case based example. So one has to understand first the concepts. As we all know, fundamentals have to be understood. We commonly understand in school that funda should be clear. Then you can apply it.
Exactly. Right. So we'll take one question from the form that we circulated. It's related to agricultural startup. A student wishes to start a startup in agriculture field, and what should be the ideal steps that he should take? How should he go about it? So from investment perspective, from location perspective.
So it is again a very important question which has been asked. And agriculture, as you all know, I'll take a certain amount of time for this, because I'll take this opportunity to highlight some of the points which needs to be amplified for agriculture sector. And probably this is very important. I'll just take you to that slide so that some points you can relate better.
Okay.
Agriculture sector. Okay. So, okay. So agri 15 percentage of GDP. Okay, it provides 15 percentage of GDP, but employs 43% of the workforce. So it has an employment elasticity of output in agriculture is zero or negative. So we need to understand that aspect. So translated in simple words, it means that there is a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are there in agriculture. Okay, so the public policy is aimed at providing shifting people who are disguised unemployed to uh, productive part. I mean, meaningful employment. Where can we give in food processing sectors? That's why I'm relating. I'm coming to the question. I'm relating to the macro sector because macro factors also have an impact on the entrepreneurs at the firm level. So the public policy is driving at encouraging the post-harvest management interventions in the form of food processing, cold chain infrastructure in the private sector, warehouse construction, and all this. So there is a public policy which is very clear and totally focused towards that. So this is the external positive environment. So this is a very positive and bright, I mean, regulatory regime, and always encourage, I mean, entrepreneurs to think about this sector in a more deeper and more nuanced manner. So coming to examples and coming to actual implementational nitty-gritties, is that uh, probably I'll give some examples so that there are interventions which are happening in the form of having a distributed warehousing. For example, there is a venture by the name of Ergos. Ergos.in. What does it do? You can look it up. Ergos. What does it do? It basically is a network of grain banks. It's a grid of micro warehouses in a place called Samastipur in Bihar. I'm just giving real life examples so that it can be related to actual things. Business is about actually doing it. So, ergos.in, what does it do? It uses the actual needs because they have to think about unit economics. Unit economics in common sense means that what is the per unit cost, whether it will be sustainable. If I put up a massive warehousing infrastructure in a remote hinterland, so it has to be utilized also. The capacity has to be utilized for it to be totally. It has to not only break even, it has to generate surpluses and profits which are sustainable profits. I'm not talking about crass profits, but sustainable profits. So for that, one has to understand the needs. The needs of what are the needs of these underserved markets, unserved markets? They need a distributed network of micro warehouses. That is what this intervention provides. Ergos.in and other examples. Other examples of successful interventions in agri, I mean, from the entrepreneurial space is utilizing something called uh, the technology. Okay, these are utilizing technology also. Agritech Agrostar. Agrostar is basically a company which is like the Facebook and Amazon for commerce. It's the first agritech unicorn with around 100 million of funding. So, what does it do in common words? What does it do? It brings the farmers and the various service providers together on a common platform. For example, what Facebook does to bring various users together and creates value, user generated content, and that they also do the user generated content and mix and match the supply and demand. Also, like Amazon, what do they do? They provide the opportunities for the farmers to sell, or for the farm implement providers, for example tractor providers, to let out their tractors to the users. So this was a felt need. There are two types of needs in marketing. The basic principles, first principles of marketing is felt need and unfelt need. It's more important to understand the unfelt need. And unfelt needs are those blue oceans which are there for the entrepreneur, ready to be used, rather than worrying about external environment for over which nobody has any control. So the other examples are like, further to expand on other examples is Agribazar. Is another such intervention, another such enterprise, or or entrepreneurial venture, which is a full stack agri-tech player who have replicated the physical mandi to a e-mandi aggregator model. The same tech-based platform that we are speaking of. It's a major opportunity with the easing of the laws in this domain, which is already in force. So and farmers, as you know, are there in large numbers. Food production is a major agriculture. We would recollect it from our NCR textbooks. It's the mainstay of Indian economy. We used to read like that, and this is actually a truism. So what is happening in that is that how do the farmers get the remunerative value for the produce, and that is where the need is. And technology platforms which are competing with other platforms, even with the APMC is still there, but they have force only over the within the four walls of the APMC. Other than that, they have competitions from tech-based platforms, e-trading platforms, and from ENAM. ENAM is the government-led initiative of electronic national agriculture marketplace, and various other providers who can come up and compete, and then the competition will result in a greater meaningful greater fair distribution of the economic pie within the various stakeholders, and probably eliminate those middlemen who were not adding any meaningful value to the value chain. For example, in the agricultural value chain, we have around 8 to 10 middlemen, probably who may not be adding any substantial value to the value chain. So that those interventions, these aspects of regulatory, the liberalization and the encouragement of the free agri marketplace will unlock opportunities for new investments. So probably, I'll always request student entrepreneurs, they can, they're welcome to get in touch through the social media coordinates that I've mentioned. So they should leverage the opportunities which are there. They should look beyond the fine print. That is what my point is.
True, right. So let's take one last question, if you don't mind, if we
Yes,
are
yes,
not
please.
oversitting the time. Okay, so it's related to the pharma sector. The recently we know about the API and how important it is, and how reliant we are on China for importing APIs. So how ready are we in terms of starting these productions, and how do you think we will be able to achieve it in near future? Is it something that's easy for our technology based, so pharma companies, or is it something difficult? And also, maybe if you can highlight what the importance of intellectual property, the patents, and stuff on this industry.
So, uh, the aspects of lockdowns and closures, they have actually demonstratively led to a slowed production of APIs, resulting in less availability and higher cost for the materials required for generics production. So this is there, this known. So the aspect of cost becomes very important. Cost and intellectual property. Intellectual property also has an impact on the cost. So, to what extent the pharma sector companies can enter the API value chain also depends on their financial muscle. And though the external environment may be fairly conducive at this point of time, the financial muscle of the or the resources for investment in fixed capital, or for reorienting their supply chains, or the production systems for manufacturing API also becomes important. So cost cost has to be imputed to the changes in manufacturing requirement for them, and also for sourcing of the raw materials for them. But it is a given thing that some of the companies, I'm told, are exploring manufacturing API in a very big way. And those companies, for example, and let us also remember all through that India is a strong, very strong in pharma sector. Probably the such aspects of API value chain, we were not there because it was totally cost effective as it stood, especially before the COVID pandemic, to import from China. For that matter, China, I'm just giving an example, API is from China. It's very cost effective, and cost is a major driver of entrepreneurial mathematics. Okay, so that aspect of API was being imported from China because of those reasons. Now, with the change circumstances, Business are re-evaluating their cost benefit analysis, doing cost benefit analysis, and trying to see that even though in the short term we may entail a slightly higher cost in manufacturing APIs, but once the economies of scale and scope are reached, then it will result in a more sustainable value chain or supply chain, which is not affected by such shocks. And it's also understood by most of the people that such shocks another shock may be around the corner with other factors, macro factors like climate change and such other things. The companies who who want to think ahead are already aware of this. They are alive of the issue that probably in the short run it may entail cost, but it will be beneficial for the business as a whole in the long run. Also, we should remember that India is having very good, R&D R&D powers in the pharma sector, R&D capability in the pharma sector. For example, we are one of the front runners in the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. For example, Zydex, they are trying the trials. Zydex Cadila, they're Ahmedabad-based, Gujarat, naturally. So we need to exploit our strengths and enter into those spaces which may be in the short run slightly cost intensive, but may pay dividends in the longer run. So in some, I believe Indian pharma companies can do it, can enter those part of the value chain, which will sustain the value proposition over a longer period of time.
True, right. Okay, and one student wanted to know if there are any government projects that students like us can take up, and maybe how to scout for such opportunities. If you can please take the question.
Yes, yes, yes. So basically, there are various challenges and hackathons which are floated from time to time on NITI Aayog. NITI Aayog website is there. Then there are COVID-19 challenges, various relating to various solutions of various domain problems. So one can select the domain and it's already available. mygov.gov.in is also there, a platform of the government wherein it crowdsource ideas. And in addition to that, the Atal Innovation Mission ecosystem is there where one can explore what ideas are there. It's getting, um, I mean, very much important nowadays that. Young students or youth entrepreneurs, they utilize all the opportunities. So, and moreover, at the most important thing is that one has to have the core skill sets. Skill sets means that one has to think about which sectors one wants to do an entrepreneurial venture. One has to, that is the choice which is from the entrepreneur side. And also at the same time, again the point I'm emphasizing again is that one has to go beyond the fine print, that such and such unicorn in the I'm just giving an example that got so much of a line of funding. Probably it was a requirement which was met by them, and probably there is no need for a second one in that space. So every one should not keep running about that. There are many other spaces which are still there. For example, agriculture sector we were discussing are there. Many other sectors are there. And probably if we realize the socio-economic conditions of India, then design the products. Design doesn't mean high-tech R&D. Design basically means that understanding the needs and orienting and reorienting or orienting the solutions or offerings according to that. So there are government, supports. In fact, let me give the example of Gujarat. There is a, please make a note of it. iHub, I hyphen hub Gujarat is a government of Gujarat initiative for entrepreneurs. So please utilize the various incentives and the encouragements given by them. iHub. So and in addition to that, please look up the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion and of Internal Trade. There is a department under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry in the Government of India. In short, DPIIT, and that is basically the controlling department, the nodal department for Startup India Mission. Startup India Mission basically is a very important thing of where you can think from the scratch. In fact, it's a Startup India Mission. For example, the student was asking that how can we have projects. So basically it can be a project also, and if the project is having value, which is, and it can be incubated in incubation centers, and there are so many incubators which are there around the country. So if the idea is attending a real need or a problem, real life problem, then that idea can be picked up for incubation, and then it can it can undergo that funding cycle, and then it can be a venture. So those aspects are there. Please explore the startup landscape, Startup India Mission and related websites. Startup has got a very liberalized definition which is favoring the startups to take the entrepreneurial plunge.
Right, right. Uh, we have shared a feedback form in the chat screen, and sir, I will be sharing you the feedback. After the session, let's give out some time to people, and we'll be sharing it with you soon. And I think let's wrap the session. And I think we already took a lot of your time. And yeah, so I think there is a grave and urgent need for people like us to understand what importance it holds for design thinking, and how to approach a problem and how to find a solution to it. And I think that mindset, that entrepreneurship mindset, that problem solving mindset needs to be developed right from an early age. Maybe even educational institutes needs to look towards it, and maybe instill such values inside students from a very early age. Because what we see comparatively, you have shown a slide in which we have seen that number of startups in China and the comparative figures in India, we are far more behind, and maybe that's how we will cope up by producing more and more such successful startups inside our ecosystem. Right. Okay, so I would like to conclude the session, and thank you so much. I formally thank you on behalf of BK School of Professional and Management Studies for taking out time for us for such an interactive session, and for enriching us with so much of knowledge and wisdom that you have. And it has been a very wonderful time that we spent with you, and you have been an inspiring figure for us, based on your journey so far and your experiences. It was really insightful, and we hope everyone learned a lot of things from this session, and they will certainly look forward to implementing it in their life and maybe starting something on their own. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the beautiful opportunity, and I wish all the very best to all the students and entrepreneurs out there. They are always welcome to connect with me through social network, and I would be happy to help or be of assistance to all of you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good day. Thank you all for joining. Let's end the meeting. Goodbye. Have a good day.